Oh, shine on. Oh, listen, do I know a set of lyrics for that one? Yes, there is a more liberal attitude towards things today, but not quite that liberal. Don't you laugh, man. That's right. Oh, by the way, tonight's subject, I'm going to warn you, tonight's subject is crime and punishment.
All right, everybody, let's dance.
Yes. That is correct. Crime and punishment, oh, the evil that thou hast wreaked shall come back to haunt thee long after the waves have settled upon the Sargasso Sea of your conscience. I'm going to play it here.
Now if you run into all covered with fun, that diamond ring, that all the things, you better not let me just take have everybody sing my
All together now, gang. Yeah. My God, that was fantastic, wasn't it? Here's the other. Let's see. The blue. The rainy day. It's a rotten song, to tell you. One of the worst songs. We have to salute a third grade class in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. A month-long lobbying effort by an Upper Darby third grade class has paid off. At the State Senate of Pennsylvania, the Senate has passed a bill to make the firefly, or the lightning bug, the state's official insect. The idea started with the Highland Park Elementary School third grade class. Senator said, the firefly. You know what the state's insect of New York really should be? If you want an insect that is really classically typical of New York, it has to be the cockroach. Absolutely. And we'd be the first state to stop fighting cockroaches and just go along with it, right? Let's get a couple of these commercials out of the way first. 5'2", eyes are blue. Listen, one more question that just has come in from one of our listeners. I promised to myself that I would not, at any point any longer, mention streaking. Everybody's, streaking is going to be such a drag. Now, that can be interpreted several ways, but streaking has become, everybody does it. But this is a question that I just could not ignore. It says, Dear Mr. Shepard, would you please give me some suggestions for creative streaking? creative is the key word there, of course. Just running out and running through the weeds and jumping over, a Volkswagen and cutting like hell to the fraternity house is not exactly creative. It just takes a lot of good legwork. Now, the interesting point is that this was signed by a girl. Now, and her point is well taken. I think creativity is possible in almost any art form and in any activity. One can be a creative duster if one dusts well in the house. Put a little creative legwork and some beautiful wrist action. You can even dust to say the sounds of the Swan Lake Ballet. And dusting then becomes something that people would pay money to come in and see you do, right? And be worthwhile. And the thing must have its own value as a creative subject. The idea that you have brought something creative to your work should be payment in itself. Now, since the question has arisen, is there such a thing as creative streaking, and is it possible? Yes, it is possible. For example, anyone who has ever attended what used to be known as a Burley house, has seen some pretty creative streaking in his time. And I would like to suggest, since you're a girl, there is a great act that was a streaker, very highly paid streaking act, in which tassels of various colors were attached to certain portions of the anatomy. A creative streaker who could get those tassels twirling in opposite directions as she streaked could very well get herself on the Johnny Carson show. If she knows a little bit about, have you seen that time? Then there was another great streaker who did not use tassels, but used small sequin-covered propellers attached to certain prominent portions of her anatomy. And by moving in certain artistic directions, using the muscles well, she could get her propellers going in two different directions. And so I would like to suggest there's all kinds of possibilities. I don't want to. Then there's, of course, the psychedelic streak, in which a person can streak in various colors. Now, it depends on how well the colors are used as to whether it's artistic or not. Then there's the commercial streak. For example, it wouldn't be too difficult for you to go about town and get sponsors for your streak, carrying in certain parts of your anatomy a small advertisement for various things that are obtainable in the commercial market. For example, it wouldn't be too difficult, I imagine, to get a few massage parlors to sponsor your streak. And, if you like this, try, So everything has its value. So would you please, Al, please, once more, I want to clear the air here just before we go into the crime and punishment segment of tonight's work. That's it. Everybody stand on. Yeah, we're getting the envelope for sweat for this one. 5'15", eyes of blue. Oh, what a... Yeah. Has anybody seen my girl? Oh, I know some lyrics here right at this point. Has anybody seen my girl? A little bit higher there. Has anybody seen my girl? You ought to see them bigger yellow teeth on my girl. Yeah, she's got scaly knees, bug-out eyes. Yes, that I do. Has anybody seen my girl? Yeah. That's 75 feet. And her face, has anybody seen my girl? Yes, 5'2", eyes blue. Has anybody seen that little kid? Has anybody seen my girl? Hold it there. That's enough of that. We have an adult audience here. Let's put it this way, an adult nervous audience. As is the case with everybody these days. Which brings up, once again, we must remind you that the subject of tonight's program is crime and punishment.
All right, everybody, let's dance.
That's right. And you better start dancing or I'm going to shoot your feet right off. Good. This is WOR New York, speaking of crime and punishment. 5'2", eyes are blue. Has anyone ever seen my athletic gal of mine? Used to be called Charlie. We now call her Charlotte. 5'2", eyes are blue. Oh, well, I'm making no value judgment. I'm just saying, it's all part of the swirling, exciting life of the maelstrom of our times. One never knows what's happening, does one? Does one. One. No? Does one? Oh, yes, crime and punishment. Okay. Thought I was going to lose that, didn't you? One does not ever lose retribution. It's always with you. Yes, crime and punishment. Have you ever been actually caught at a terrible moment when you had just begun to or were about to commit a crime? Have you? Now, it depends on what you call crime. Crime means doing something that is illicit, illegal, in the society, the situation in which you find yourself at that time. Got to be very careful. Today's crime may be tomorrow's heroic act. That's right. Have you noticed already now they're beginning to, as people get more and more disillusioned in our time, now they're beginning to reevaluate Benedict Arnold. He'll come off a hero. George Washington is going to be the ultimate saint eventually. So you never know, history is a sneaky mother, I'll tell you. But what is crime? It's very difficult to know what crime is. We don't know. Is there an ultimate crime? Well, we don't know even about that. We don't know, Can you imagine yourself arriving before this imaginary great bar of justice? And, you think you've lived a totally clean life. You haven't done anything, right? And, you've lived an exemplary life by earthly standards. And you arrive up before this great bar of justice. Yeah. How you got there, well, that's another story. Nevertheless, there's a great swoosh, and you go down the chute, and whoop, like that, and can you imagine going to heaven like being sent to one of those pneumatic tubes that they have? You ever seen the old department stores? There's still a lot of them around where they put this little round piece of metal, a little tin can, they put your money in it, they stick it in this chute, it goes, and it goes, see? And you wait around, and all of a sudden it goes, and the change comes back. Well, I have it. From the time I was a kid, I always wondered, it's a mysterious thing, And I've often thought of heaven, or going to heaven or hell, as being sucked down a giant pneumatic tube. And you land and you're unwrapped, and there you are. You're before the bar of justice. Now, you're not in heaven nor hell. You ain't nowhere yet. You're in you're at the place where they decide where you're going to get assigned. And here's this cosmic judge, and he's looking down from this giant pearl-covered desk. Somehow we always relate pearl to heaven, don't we? Mother of pearl. I don't know why. I mean, you never think of a desk as, say, a tasteful shade of burnt orange with a cocoa trimming, anything like that. It's always a mother of pearl or white somehow, But nevertheless, here he is. He's up there on top of that desk, and he's looking down at you. And we always see him as an elderly citizen, right, with a giant beard. And he looks down. And the little echo chamber wouldn't hurt here at all. We're preparing our heavenly voice. Charles W. Bullard, you have arrived at the bar of justice. The time has come for you to settle all your earthly debts and to be assigned for all eternity to your just reward. Shall you go to heaven, or shall you go the other direction? I am now opening the vast book of accounts to see just how you did when you were living at 1722.5 Murgatroyd Avenue in the Bronx, New York, New York. Stand up straight, Charles W. Bullard. Pulling your gut, please. You must listen now to your eternal sentence. Aha! I have rarely seen a page covered with such an incredible pastiche of crime. There is no doubt where you're going. What did I do? Why? What? Crime? What do you mean crime? That's the problem, France. Are you at this moment, this very instant, guilty of a crime just by listening to me? You could be. Who knows? There have been those who have said that Shepard is the ultimate subversive, rotting away the core of the brain, which is even more subversive than rotting away the laws, rotting away the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, rotting away the core of your brain, suggesting perhaps that you going in there tomorrow and writing that commercial for the Pickle Company could very well be committing a heinous crime against all of mankind that you may damn well pay for, floating along the river Styx there, rowing that balsa-wood canoe as the flames lap up at your old bottom and the screaming dead souls yell and holler and try to make it up to the shore. They never quite make it because Charon keeps bopping them on the head with a cast iron paddle. Not that dee. Eyes of blue. Oh, yeah, crime and punishment. You want to know about that? Well, all right. We've seen it, haven't we? We've seen the face of the defendants. That's one thing that television brings you all the time. It brings you some guy constantly up before a gigantic inquisition, admitting his guilt. This is probably the most common thing we've seen on television recently. It's replaced all the great old shows. You know, Pinky Lee, all them shows. Remember Pinky Lee? You do? You remember the hat? Pinky Lee, I'm Pinky Lee. And, well, I mean, you know, this is all part of our culture. You can't put it down. But nevertheless, the sight of... and tonight, I'm being a surrogate for you. Every man today likes to feel that he is an innocent person. He is being accused by an unjust society of various acts against the common weal. This is a common, and not only a common, but probably a perpetual feeling that malefactors have always felt. Very few malefactors admit that they were wrong. No way. Absolutely. They were driven to it by factors above which and about which they had no control. Well, I was one time, and I sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning, I wake up in a quiet sweat, really a sweat, thinking of you know, what happens is any criminal, any time that the crime has been perpetrated, the desire of the criminal to talk about his victory is almost impossible to fight down. I mean, if you have pulled a fantastic job, and the back of your car, the trunk of your '53 Dodge, is filled with $20 bills right up to the top. You open up the trunk and they fly out. You've got 27 million $20 bills in the back. It's not easy to prevent yourself. You know, some night when you're down at the Bluebird Tavern, you got a couple of wild turkeys under your belt there. To say, well, God, you know, you're watching up the TV in the corner there, and you see these guys getting caught by Jack Lord and by Cannon and all those guys. Say, look, did I ever tell you guys that? You guys ever wonder why I light my cigars with $20 bills, huh? Yes, the desire to talk about your crime is a terrible, terrible compulsion. In fact, novels have been written about this. What do you think Crime and Punishment was about? Well, I mean, Raskolnikov, he could not, ultimately, he had to say, I did it, you guys, come and take me away. Well, why? Nobody knows why. It's one of those things, because crime is a form of competition. And competition, yes, it is. And you're competing against the system. And you're taking the long bet. And most times you lose. But those rare moments when you win, a solitary, unsung victory is just simply not much of a victory at all. I mean, can you imagine what it would be like if you broke the world record for the 880? Absolutely broke the absolutely known world record for the 880, and nobody knew about it. And you knew. That would not be hard to keep in some ways. And on the other hand, you could not help spelling it, right? Okay. I discovered this very early in my career. I have to suggest right here now that one of the best educational, perhaps, devices, I think it should be written into every kid's education, is to be caught red-handed at a specific point in his life early enough so that it's a total trauma. And from that day onward, he will be very, very careful. I have a feeling that a lot of guys that are getting caught in the big dragnet today have never been caught in any dragnet. You can't imagine, say, Ellison getting caught off base in the 3rd grade. He looks like a natural-born good speller. Haldeman looks like this guy can do algebra till hell freezes over, doesn't he? Well, so, you get to a certain point, and you don't think in terms of yourself getting caught at anything. Whereas those of us who are caught early in our career think of ourselves constantly in terms of being caught. Once you've been burned by that stark flame of retribution, once you have been part of a system where the axe is lowered on the back of your neck for an evil crime you have perpetrated, and we're caught red-handed at, you are different. I'm the kind of guy who driving through the byways of New Jersey at 5 o'clock in the morning at dawn when there's no other car on the road will stop for a red light. There's no car within 500 miles. I'll stop. Why? Instinct. That's right, because how am I to know that red light over there is not a cleverly disguised New Jersey state cop with a red light on the top of his head, I mean, after all, I've been taken once. Yes, it's the disguise that gets you. You know what happened to me? All right, I'll tell you the story. In high school, sophomore year, that's the time you start to go wrong. When you're a freshman, you're a little scared. I'm a sophomore, I'm kind of feeling kind of great. Next year, I'm going to be a junior. Springtime, sap rising. Yes, I was already beginning to put out little shoots around the back of my ears. A nest of robins was circling over my head. They were about to start a little nesty there. It was spring, Nest of robins, sap rises, the whole bit, The lute string of passion and desire was playing deep in my gut. And this was also affecting certain friends of mine. Schwartz, namely, in this particular case. For some reason or other, Flick totally escaped this dragnet. He was not even involved that day, which was highly unusual because he was the leading criminal in our sect. And it was a sect. But on this particular occasion, we went to this big high school, a tremendous high school, 3,000 kids. And it was a beautiful day. Now, we were only about 1.5 miles from Lake Michigan. And when you live 1.5 miles from a big, beautiful, sparkling lake, and it's springtime, it's a late March, and one of those great 75-degree days that suddenly come out of the hiding, and you can just feel it, and it's just vibrant. So we were coming to school on this day, just like any other day, little realizing we were about to have, let's put it this way, a truly educational experience that had little to do with the geography of the Ural mountain chain, which we were studying at that time for reasons I still have not figured out. But nevertheless, we arrived at school about 1.5 minutes before the bell. They had this bell rang at 8:25. Everybody comes charging in. And the guys are milling around out in front of the school. And it was beautiful. The sun is shining down. Well, me and Schwartz went around the back of the school. This is, again, I might point out, not a little country school. No, for any point, think of this. It had 3,000 kids. It had 4 stories. It covered 2.5 blocks, city blocks, gigantic school. And it is still there, operating strong. It looks exactly now as it did then. I saw it about a month ago, so don't tell me it isn't. It's there. Well, around the back of the school, we went around the back for one reason. Schwartz's homeroom and my homeroom were in the back of one of the floors. Mine was on the 2nd floor, room 220. Schwartz was on the 3rd floor. His was over in one wing, but near the back. See, some homerooms were in the front of the school. So we're staying around the front there for a couple of seconds, and Schwartz said, let's go around the back. So we went around the back, all the way around. We cut through the tennis courts. And there were a bunch of kids standing around in the back there, waiting to get in. We had a big door in the back there. And we milled around a little bit in the crowd there. Oh, it was a fantastic day. And the breeze was blowing. And we sort of just kind of wandered around in the crowd a little bit. And for some reason or other, I cannot tell you, you see, crime often occurs in a way that in a sense makes you believe that there is a supernatural, that you have been driven to do these things. And this is why many defendants, when they're before the dock, will finally say, I don't know why I did it. He really doesn't know why he did it. He doesn't. He's telling you the literal truth. Well, Schwartz and I drifted into, we were with a bunch of kids, about 12,000 kids. Hi, Cliff, all that stuff. We drifted into the garage. There was a garage in the back of the school where they kept, school vehicles. There was, the whole lot of lawnmowers and stuff. And there was a big garage attached to the back of the school, and it was open. They had this great big door that went up, an enormous steel door that folded up, went up to the top, and all these vehicles were back there. Well, for some reason, Schwartz and I drifted into this garage. Now, why? We never drifted into that damn garage hardly ever. But why today? It was warm. It was great. We drifted into the garage. It was kind of gloomy in there. And we were just sort of standing around back there talking. When we hear the bell, it goes. All the kids go, they're roaring like hell. Schwartz and I are in the garage. Without even any previous, well, let's put it this way, discussion, plan, scheme, conspiracy, whatever you want to call it. I looked at Schwartz, Schwartz looked at me, and we knew we were not going into school today. We were not going into school today. So we stood there for a couple of minutes, and it's now very silent. All the kids have gone into the school. You could hear the school going on up there. You hear people, going up and down in the halls, and Schwartz and I stood there in the darkness. And at that point, we drifted out into the concrete walkway, and along the side of the school, we turned left, past the football field, turned left again, and now we're going past. We had this big round track out there, see, and we just sort of drifted, not running. We didn't want to run or anything like that, but we were walking along, see. And we were pretending like we were working at some place. We turned right, and we ran like hell. We are free as a bird. Well, now, Schwartz had this car. He had an old car that we had spent a lot of time working on between the two of us one time or another. And we made a great big circuitous arc around the school, back all the way around to the street where Schwartz had his car parked. A lot of other kids parked there. We get into the car, we turned it around, headed away from school, and 20 minutes later, we are out at the lake. Now, we're not going to swim. It's too early for that. Just being there, We walked along, and we were, there's big sand dunes on either side of us. We're walking along the lake. It was just fantastic. The water's lapping in. They had great beaches there, see, and the sun is coming down and dancing on the water out there. And we fooled around. And we were feeling the itch, the real itch. If we only had a couple of girls here, it would be fantastic. Well, we walked down the beach, and we angled in. There was a big parking lot there, it had a big bathing house and all that stuff, like Jones Beach. See? We angled in, and sure enough, there was a big restaurant there, which was being readied for the opening of the swimming season. Now, I've never told you this story, because now I think the 7-year limitation has passed, and all of us can be, we paid for our crime, but Schwartz and I are drifting past this big restaurant, and there were about 10 girls out there who were the girls that worked there, the waitresses and all that stuff. Half of them had just got out of high school. Some of them had dropped out of high school. There were about 7 of them were about the same age as we were. So we start talking to these girls. And a couple of the girls said, we only got a half a day today. Well, why don't we go out and do something? So sure enough, the next thing you know, we are out carousing about with these 2 chicks. I remember one of them's name is Jane Hutchinson. I always remember this. Hey, we're having a hell of a time. We're running up and down the beach. And it's just, great moment there. And we went out and ate hot dogs, and we decided to go to a show that afternoon, which is really illicit. So we went in, we sit in there, we watched the show, and we decided that this is such a great afternoon that we're going to have to make a regular thing to see. So we talked to these 2 girls, and they decided, okay, how about coming next Wednesday And this was a Wednesday. Next Wednesday, we'll get together. And, we were beginning to feel the excitement. So I'm walking down the street with Schwartz after that. It's about 4 o'clock now, remember. And the kids are starting to come home from school. You can see them drifting home. All around us, the kids. Schwartz says to me, Shepard, and I said, yes, Schwartz. He says, wow. He says, that Doris is something else, right? I said, that's right, Schwartz. I says, next time we won't be just running around on the beach, I suspect. He says, oh, man. Whoo-wee. And you know how it is. The sap is rising. I said, listen, you can have that Doris, but did you notice that, that James. And so our plans are formulating in our head. We're going to have a spring of total debauchery. We have discovered something that had never quite occurred to us. Little did we realize what was lying in wait for us. We had a great time. And so now we have joined a crowd of kids that are going home. All kinds of kids. So we drive Schwartz's car down the street just like anything else, and I arrive at home. And my mother, usually says, how was school today? Oh, fine. Oh, what the heck. That she had no suspicion whatsoever. And about 10 minutes later, I call Schwartz to see if it's going okay with his house. I say, Schwartz. I said, did anything happen? He says, no, she doesn't know what the hell's going on. I said, yeah, well, grown-ups never know what the hell's going on, And so I said, okay, Schwartz. I said, now listen, we got to figure out something for tomorrow. We got to go to school tomorrow. He said, well, okay. So that night we got together, and Schwartz says, listen, we got to write a note. And let's write a note, and we'll figure out something. So the next day, we arrive at school. We still haven't got the damn note written. We walk into the garage. We're in the back again. We walk into the garage. Listen to this. You haven't heard a thing. We walk into the garage, and I write the note. Schwartz says, no. That's your handwriting. You can't write that note. And there was a guy working in the garage, a mechanic. Schwartz said, say, would you write a note for us? The guy says, oh, yeah, what the hell? Sure, what do you want me to write? And Schwartz says, would you write down Schwartz and Shepard had to stay out of school because Mrs. Schwartz needed these two boys to help her because she has arthritis and cannot wash her windows, and they helped her, signed Mrs. Schwartz. Could you write that? And he says, sure, of course. He says, but you can't. You got to put it in the first person. I had that right. So he writes it down on the hood of a Dodge truck. At which point, we grab the note, the bell rings, we go upstairs, I take it into Miss Snyder, and she says, oh, I see, very good, very good. And Schwartz takes the note then and gives it to his homeroom teacher, who is Miss E. McCullough. 2 periods later, I am sitting in history class. Mr. Wilson comes over to me and says, just got a call from the office. I want to talk to you. The office? Yeah, he said, I know. He just said, send you up there right away. I go downstairs to the first floor of the office. I figured maybe they're going to ask me about why I didn't pay for the lock that I lost off my locker, something like that. I walk in. There's Schwartz! Oh, my God. We are both summoned into the presence. The presence in this case being the principal. He said, Mr. Moskovitz down in the garage tells me that he wrote this note for you two. And you realize, of course, that Mr. Moskovitz, when he's not working in the garage, works for us here in the truant department. He spends his time. My God, a think of all the people! We were suspended for 3 days. There was a note sent home to my mother, not by me, but mailed to my mother. A triplicate was sent to Miss Snyder, my homeroom teacher. It was probably also sent to the FBI. And from that day on, Schwartz and I were assigned for the next 2 weeks, after school every day, with a pail and a can of Bon Ami, to wash the walls of the lobby to the auditorium. We washed and we washed. Schwartz said nothing. I said nothing. We never really mentioned it much after that. We didn't get the beach much either. After that, never did see Jane Hutchinson again. I don't know what the hell happened to Dora. All I know is the fear of getting caught. It never left. Never left. Yeah, this is WOR New York. You stay tuned for In Conversation, okay?